Welcome back, everybody, as we stare into the beautiful behind of Bessie here. We are really looking forward to this episode. I love harvest time in real life, and hold on, let's just relish this moment. Okay. We are about to hop into Bessie and start up for the first time ever doing something other than driving to and from the store. Let's get started. I am really, whoops, okay, that would have put a really quick end to her day if I ran into a wall. I'm really excited about harvest. It's my favorite time of the year in real life. The weather starts to cool off. The smells are a little bit nicer. The air is just a little bit crisper. You've got baseball playoffs typically going on in the radio of the tractors and combine when, whoa. Okay, let's not get too excited here. We've got baseball going in the radio. I had that perfect little intro all figured out. Okay, let's throw the head a little bit that way. I didn't mean to really shove it. Looks like it might be a little bit too far forward there on the header trailer. I think we can still get it without any damage. But, oh boy. Yeah, so anyway, one last attempt. Yeah, baseball is on the radio normally at this time of the year, but as with most Cub fans, they don't get to enjoy it. Fortunately, I now live in Texas and am following the Houston Astros, so, well, hopefully they're in the playoffs in the fall. Oh, yeah, there's a hopper right there. They can't really see anything behind you with the combine. You really got to rely on your mirrors. But typically combines have really good mirrors on the side there that show everything from all kinds of angles, so it's not normally a problem. But it still is good if you back up into any kind of a tight space, have someone look behind you, and you can they can help guide you through the mirrors. And yeah, we learned the hard way to have a door open also, because it doesn't help if they try shouting and you're not looking in the mirror and you don't stop in time. We didn't actually hit anything, but we came really close once trying to back into the shed. The gas tank on our farm is really close to I'm trying to figure out which way to align this header. The gas tank on our farm is really close to the, oh, you know what? Let's just go over here. Okay, let's finish that statement. The gas tank on our farm in real life is really close to the machine shed, so we have to be really careful whenever we... Oh, can I get even in the field? No, I can't. Okay. Well, you know what? Let's just make it a little bit easier. We do own this grass field, and we don't have any more grass equipment, so we'll just give ourselves plenty of room here, assuming that we can get out. You know what? I don't think we can get out. Okay, so we're going to hopefully finish this little combine driving adventure and actually harvest at some point. We'll get to it in a second. Here we go. This will work now. Okay, do a big U-turn. We will hop outside this fence here, and we'll park right alongside the wall. I'm thinking that'll be the best place for the head. The trailer will still be able to get out. We'll be able to get easy access to it with the combine, and we'll be able to get in the field easily. Okay, so I'm trying to wait until we are straight, and then we'll try to get the trailer a little bit closer to the wall. Not too close, though. I think that should be pretty good. Let's just see if we can't get a little bit more. Let's get out and look at that. That's pretty good overall. This is one of those things I talked about. You might want to have someone, another pair of eyes looking behind you. Whoops. Yeah, so you got to go the right direction. That helps. Okay, so we will miss the fence post on the left there and miss the trailer, of course, on our right. And I think that should be pretty good. Yeah, that's right. Okay, we did it. But we don't want to go too far. We don't want to back up into our crops, which we probably did a little bit. In hindsight, it might have been easier to put this head on up at the house, but I don't know. This is still pretty tight here. Yeah, we're not going to get in straight there. You gotta go in straight. So let's try actually going forward here, and then we'll back into the lane behind us. And I think finally we will be able to. Let's see. We don't want to hit that fence. Okay. One second. Let's just get out and look. Best to be careful, yeah, before you. Okay, so if we go forward just a little and cut it just a hair that way, then we should miss that fence post. And as soon as we clear it, we can crank the other way and crank the uh-oh. This is not good. Okay, we dented the edge of the fender there. Okay, we're going to get this, guys. You know what? I don't even have to crank it that tight because the head is well over to the other side. Okay, we're going to do this. We're going to do it this time. Okay, so we'll go. There we go. We just didn't want to hit the tree on the other side right there. We didn't want to hit that tree. But we are finally lined up. Finally. And this is always an adventure in itself, trying to get the head just perfect in real life. You have to get the combine perfectly parallel, and then you can pick up when you get a little bit closer, little bit closer, little bit. There we go. Right underneath that head is what you want. And then, of course, you have to get off and connect the PTO. Forget, is there a PTO on this side too? What the? Okay, so what do we do here? Detach, attach, attach. I think I'm in the... Okay, so that side's attached. What about this side? Detach. Okay, so we must be attached then. I guess I'm used to real life where... I don't know if that's in the part of the other bigger heads, but in real life, our head, you have to attach chains on both sides of the head. Ooh. So, yeah, that's another thing you don't have to worry about in real life because you already have it raised when you go to pull it off. I guess, yeah, if you're going to be lined up, you would have the feeder house there raised in the front. Oh, goodness, this is just ugly. We are going to... we're gonna just ignore that happened because, yeah, we'll figure out a better place than that. Anyway, here we go, the big moment. And nothing happened. Let's try it again. The big moment. We are combining, and let's do along to the left here. You always want to make sure that, and this is what Dad always tells us, he never likes us to drive with the auger out because sometimes you forget to put the auger back in when you go along next to trees. And a lot of farmers, you'll see that they leave their auger out. And that's great when they're in the middle of a field, but I can't tell you how many farmers leave the auger out and they're driving in the middle of the field, and then, you know, it might be a field attached to their home, so they come up to the house and go to park it in a shed or near a shed, and wham, they have a nice little dent in their auger, and that ruins your day. You have to replace the entire thing because you'll never get that thing into a circle again, and augers don't like to turn when they cannot move on a smooth surface. So yeah, that ruins your day, and probably the next day, and then probably the next day again. So that's pretty horrible. Let's actually make sure that we have the straw swath on. I can't see. It looks like we do, yeah. So we are making a swath, but we don't have a baler. Did I already sell the baler? I told myself that I needed to keep the baler because we need to make straw for the cows. I don't know if I did that. Let's look at our equipment real quick here. Because... oh, we do have a baler. Okay, so we are good. We can make some straw for the cows. Okay, so, you know, it would have been nice to make this into 2 fields. This is going to be awful hard to turn around here. Let's think we should still turn around, though. We'll try to... What did we decide? Did we decide this field's bigger north-south or east-west? Let's look on the mini-map real quick. See if we can't figure that out. So, it looks like... it's about 50-50 either way. We'll just head... We'll probably head east to west. Whoops, don't want to cut grass. We want to cut some straw. I mean, wheat, not straw. Straw is what you get at the end. So we'll get it a little bit closer there. There we go. Now we'll lower. We'll try to crank it as big as... There we go. And we will be making a couple end rows on this side. Give ourselves a little bit more room to turn around. It's really the downside about fields like this. It's... By the time you give yourself a couple end rows to turn around on, I mean, the end rows are basically extended to half the width of the field, so it doesn't really help you that much. There's really no way to combine a small field like this that's super efficient, because either way you do it, you're going to have some short rows based on the angle of the field. You know, it comes to a point here, whether you go north, south, east, west, you're going to have some short rows at some point. So our yield looks pretty good. We were able to fertilize all of the fields, and I'm not sure if they all have 3 layers on them or not. I think that was more of a fantasy. I don't think we were able to do 3 layers on them all, but it was pretty good. Okay, so we got there. And let's let the back end run out a little bit. We got some nice grain in the tank. And maybe at this point we should cut alongside there just so we can get to our trailer. I think that is probably the best plan. But you know what? Let's square up first. This is one thing that you have to pay attention to whenever you do any types of crops with a cutting head like that. If you put the head down and you turn too much, well, here, I'll just do it as an example. So if you put down the head, now you see that snout on the left end? What do you think it's going to do when I turn to the left? There's going to be some crops over there on the left end that are getting pushed over to the left, and they're going to be kind of hard to get up. And then on the right hand side, when you turn too sharp, there's going to be some that are getting smushed by the snout, but they're not actually getting cut because you are turning, and you're turning, and of course the snout is further ahead than where the cutting blade is. So let's just keep on going. Just something you have to watch out for when you drive a combine in real life. Also, you know, this is part of the simulation that I really miss the most, because, you know, with older combines, well, with newer ones you can do it too, but honestly, a lot of the newer combines, they have all of these features automatic. What features, you ask? Well, the features that I'm about to explain. So in a combine, if you imagine what I am doing right now, we are feeding in the crop and well, I'm not sure what they're called for weeds. I know for soybeans it would be called the stalk. For corn it'd be called the stalk, but are these called stalks? I don't know. Anyway, the straw parts of the plant, you know, you have the wheat on the top, and then you have the waste essentially on the bottom. And the combine's job is to process all of that through a series of, so you have a threshing drum basically right underneath the seats, right underneath there, and then it goes on back to, after the threshing drum, it spits it out to a whole bunch of other separators where, you know, they mechanically move back and forth, and almost like you're panning for gold. If you can imagine guys panning for gold, you know, you sift it back and forth, and the smaller pieces fall to the bottom, and then it gets taken up to basically another part of the combine that you do something very similar. You know what, let's give ourselves a little bit more room. We will just cut this way for now. This is a really steep hill. But anyway, you have, it's kind of like if you imagine like you're panning for gold. That's probably the best analogy for someone who doesn't know how a combine works, how the guts of it work, the innards of a combine. So imagine panning for gold. The parts that you want fall to the bottom, And if you visualize a kernel of corn, if you visualize a soybean, and if you visualize wheat, right, they are all at different sizes, barley, and even different hybrids. You can switch from one field of corn to another field of corn, and the kernel will be either bigger or smaller. The ears might be bigger or smaller. Even if it's the same hybrid, the ears and kernels might be bigger or smaller based on the water, based on the soil type, based on a various number of other factors. So you really have to, basically what you would be doing in real life is when you set up a field initially, you have a book that tells you all these types of settings to set the the feeder house, to set the, well, not the feeder house. There's a bunch of various speeds and gaps that you set for either threshing or seeds falling. I don't know if they model it. Yeah, you can almost see the straw walkers back there. But that's the last line of defense that catches, if you look in there, you kind of see a tray. In real life, those would be wobbling all over the place and, well, not wobbling, more rotating. And the wheat would be falling to the bottom, and you would have chaff spinning out the back end. Anyway, when you first set up a field, for example, the way me and my brother do it, when we first set up a combine in a field, you drive through a pass, and then the other person walks behind the combine, and you look for kernels of grain. So whatever product you want in the hopper, refined, you obviously don't want that on the ground. There's always going to be some on the ground. You cannot avoid it. Nothing is perfect. But the book will tell you, based on the size of the head, the width of the head, what is ideal for the combine, and what your loss per acre is if you have, so say you have 10 kernels of grain in, a square foot. It'll tell you, based on the width of your head, it'll tell you how much losses per acre in bushels you are having. And of course, I'm sure these manuals have whatever per hectare, liters per hectare, or whatever you use over here. Anyway, so you have one person checking behind the combine, and if you see extra chaff in the hopper, so for example up here, if you open things up too much, you'll see, you'll get all the little pieces of grain, but you're also going to get lots of chaff and lots of junk, and they will dock you for that at the elevator. So setting up a combine from field to field is actually a pretty big deal. You don't just set it and go. Like I said, some of the modern combines, you can set it and go, and it has all kinds of sensors to monitor things like that and refine itself and adjust itself on the fly. But I don't know, in my experience, nothing is as good as adjusting it yourself and getting out of the combine, walking the field behind you, and checking. Of course, the guys who farm thousands of acres, we only farm 300 or 400 300 acres, 350, something like that. The guys who farm a lot more acres than us, they just don't have time, and they would lose more money getting out to check the field and make sure things are adjusted perfectly, because they wouldn't be able to finish their harvest, right? But we're a smaller farm. We can afford to take the time to make sure everything is as good as possible, make sure that we are getting as much of the crop as possible while not putting anything extra in the hopper, so that we don't get docked to the elevator. They will dock you if it is not clean enough. And so that's a fun part of harvest that I really miss in this game. Maybe it'd be great if they had at least a minor adjustment, like a button that you had to press to say that we're switching from corn to soybeans. Even if it's something as simple as that, that would add a decent amount of realism. I think it would be a really long time before they could actually simulate. Man, it's hard to go up this hill with this big load in the back of the hopper. But it'll be a really long time before they can actually simulate correctly all the different settings. Whoa. I think I was forward for that. It looks like our brakes gave out or something there. I don't know. Maybe you can tell more from looking at the footage, but I think I'm pretty sure I was forward there. I just let go of the gas pedal. So yeah, we slipped down the hill. That was a pretty steep hill. We should watch that. That's something that, we have a few hills in our fields, but Illinois is not really hilly. I don't really normally have to worry about that kind of thing on a hill. So we'll probably dump in the wagon right now at this point. I would imagine that I would probably do some kind of a time lapse, because I can't imagine that I would have enough to talk about to fill up all these episodes. You kind of, combining is pretty slow, especially using the more realistic mod. It is realistic, but yeah. Let's figure out, actually, I love this. You're moving at real life speeds. Anyway, let's figure out, forget which button is my auger. Hold on. Let's see if I can figure this out. Whoops, I'm pressing all kinds of buttons here. Okay, so with my side console, is it that one? That one? That one? That one? No. Is it that one? Is it that one? Is it that one? Is it that one? That one? That one? That one? Nope. 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 It's definitely not that one. Okay. Well. It's that one. Okay, we got it. Let's back up here, and we will start unloading. So which one was the auger? We'll have to remember that. The auger was that button. Okay. Sorry about it, guys. I haven't done a lot of combining in this game. All right. Let's get out, and we'll take the tarp off. It is button in. All right. Let's fill it on up. And manual unloading is button R, I believe. There we go. Dump it out, baby. I puts on the brake, and the combine's still rocking forward a little bit. Oh well. Let's spread it out a little bit more evenly. All right. Got some good crop here. I feel like the yield's pretty good for wheat, but I am not totally sure. So let's get back to harvesting. And put out the auger, put back in the auger just so to make Dad happy. I think that will work out nicely. And let's maybe head up to the other end of the field. I think that'll be good up there. We'll start up there, going east to west. I think actually, might want to do one more pass along the edge of the field. That's just not enough room. So, you know, I hate how the head lowers whenever you turn on the threshing. Hate that. Anyway, we will start there and head on in. And it'd be great if we had someone else to help us bale this behind us, but no matter. Let's get our game on. We are threshing with more realistic mod, and this time lapse is gonna take a while. You know what? My normal time lapse, here I go with the longest time lapse intro ever, just like my last video. My normal time lapse is 8x speed, so I'm not sure if this one will have to go to, I don't know, 16x since I'm moving at such a slow pace with the more realistic mod. I don't know. I'm not really sure what the best practice is for time lapses with combines because I've never done them before. So anyway, we'll figure that out as we go. And I do hope you enjoy this time lapse. Catch you guys on the other side. that takes care of this field here. We'll dump what we have on the trailer without hitting the trailer or the tractor. Good old Fritz there. Wouldn't want to hit Fritz with Bessie. That is not a good way to introduce them for playing together. I think that will clear. Yeah, we're good there. So let's dump this on and we'll get onto that other field. I think, should we go sell this right now, or should we wait until, yeah, we'll wait until we have a completely full load. That is generally the best practice. Maximize our efficiency. I don't think we'll be storing any of this grain. It's, you know, we probably won't hit a great demand between now and when we move off this map, so I think this is a good plan to do. All right, let's head on over to the other end of the field. And a couple things to note there. I lowered the head a little bit too early a couple times. You generally, you know, you only want to have the head lowered when you are going slow and combining crops. You don't want to have the head lowered unless you are going slow. So it can skip, it can bounce, and you never know what you're going to hit. Illinois doesn't have any rocks, but if we were to pick one up, well, most combines, I mean, all combines do have a rock trap. I guess I shouldn't say all combines. I don't know that for a fact, but good combines have a rock trap that hopefully catches rocks right underneath the feeder house there. The feeder house is the area that connects the combine to the head that moves up and down with the head. So let's just, we'll start right there, and let's see. So this field is a little bit easier with the end rows. We'll be able to actually do some proper end rows here and have a good long route before we have to turn around. I think this is nice. Something else I wanted to note is, you know, as you saw before the time lapse, I think it's really hard to manage a combine on a hill in real life, indeed, but some of the hills on this, I'm afraid, are maybe slightly unrealistic. I don't know. One other thing, let's make sure that we have drive control, differential, etc. engaged, all-wheel drive. So we're doing good. We'll turn on GPS as soon as well, maybe we should do it from the south end. Yeah, we'll work from the south end of this field, so that way we don't have to try to drive all the way around the crop if we have to pull out in the middle from, you know, in case we get full or something like that. Yeah, I think this is probably enough of a curve we can afford to take it curved. I know I said you don't want to generally do curves in real life, and if it's gradual enough, you can do it. It won't push over the crop too bad. Let's actually, should we do this whole, yeah, no, we're not going to do this whole path because I don't know how much of a swath I'll need to take on the other end. So we will just raise from there. We'll back up. And this is always fun, especially if you're on a cornfield, backing up with corn rows, you know, on one side, and, you know, because in Illinois you typically don't have space like that in between the field and where the crops actually start. So backing up in real life is a little bit tighter, especially in corn, because, you know, in cereal crops or soybeans, you can afford to do this, right? The head extends over the edge of the crops. Give yourself a little bit more room, that's fine. But with corn, you would be knocking over corn right now, and it would be going to the ground, and you would be losing that corn and losing yield, and that is not a good plan. So let's finish getting this field opened up. Should we do another pass here? How full are we? We're not very full. I think we'll do another pass here just to open things up a little bit more, and then maybe we can actually get turned around up there and do a pass on the way back down. So that'll make things a little bit easier to turn around on. And then we'll head over to the west side of the field with GPS, and we'll open up that side of the field. Fortunately, there's a nice little grass area that we can turn around on, so that'll help us out a lot. I think that, let's see, what are we gonna do? It's getting awful hard to climb up the hill with this combine. It's having to expend a lot of energy getting up the hill. Oh man, that's a steep hill. This is gonna be a tough field. So we'll see how it goes. It's something actually to consider when we do. We'll try to square it off a little bit here. It's something actually to consider on the West Coast map when we go to buy fields. You know, unless we have a really powerful combine, we'll probably want to try to be careful that we don't buy that's just a habit. I keep doing that. We'll have to be careful to not buy a field that is on too steep of a hill. Yeah, that's okay. Well, we did it. Probably mushed over some crop there, but we took that turn. Probably a little bit tighter than you would want to take with the head lowered. Anyway, we'll have to watch what fields we buy. That's something I never really considered. The West Coast map is not as hilly as this map. Some of the hills on this map are very steep. The grades are pretty steep, actually. Things always appear a lot less steep in game than they are in reality. So I feel like the West Coast map is a little bit more realistic in that regard. So we'll just take this gentle turn just to make turning around a little bit easier on the end there. And if we can make it, how are we doing in the hopper? We got enough to make it there at least, and hopefully back. So once we get straight here, let's try to set up GPS. So we have a new path. I think let's hit the lines and see if we are straight at all. I think that's fairly straight. So we'll just go on GPS here, try to make it up this hill. Oh goodness, look at this. We got this whole field like this. This whole field is really hilly. Oh, we got a lot of hills. But you gotta do what you gotta do. This is one of the prettier areas in the map, actually. I do really enjoy this area. Maybe we'll try to take a screenshot on the way back. I think that'd be a great screenshot. Or should we do it from this way? How's that one look? No, I think it looks better with the mountains there, but I want one of the combine facing us. So we'll call the screenshot of the day on the way back. All right, for now, we will keep on combining. Just like in real life, I don't know. It's something about watching the crops flow into the head. It's just peaceful and relaxing to me. I do enjoy this. It is my most favorite thing of the game, and it is my most favorite part of farming in real life. So I am really happy that we finally get to harvest with Bessie before moving on to the West Coast. Okay, so we are done. Generally, you want to avoid sending wet things to the combine. It has the tendency to plug it up easier. You know, it's also why you try to avoid, you know, there's a number of problems of, oops, don't want to lower it yet. There's a number of problems of trying to harvest in the rain or when the crop is wet, and one of them is that it can easily plug up the combine. You know, things do not flow smoothly through a combine when they are wet. It's made to harvest things when they are dry. And I don't know about other crops like this. I would imagine they might have the same problem as soybeans, but soybeans really are a pain in the butt to harvest when you have an auger type head like we have here on our Bessie. When you have an auger, if they get wet at all, they can just stack up on either the left end or it's for our header, it's typically the right end. They tend to stack up over there, and then they send it all through the combine at once when it loads up enough. So you really have to watch your reel. That's your this thing's your reel. So you have to watch your reel in real life. But so here's the problem: when you have your reel low like that, yeah, it feeds into the combine great, but then you are also bending over the crop, and I assume that other crops have this type of problem. I know for soybeans they have this problem very, very much because you harvest them when they are dry. So if you imagine, this reel going through the soybeans are so brittle when they're ready to harvest that they'll basically pop open and snap, and you'll lose so many beans on the ground if you have the reel all the way low. It bends them over, and you just lose so much. Yeah, it's bad. So it's a balance to, you want it as high as possible as long as they are feeding into the head smoothly. But then it's something that you always have to watch. It is a nightmare because you are always watching the head for beans stacking up on the left or the right. It's a constant battle. Some fields are worse than others. Sometimes you can relax a little bit more and stop watching for beans stacking up. But then as soon as you do that, you hear a noise and it's like, oh, what did I miss? It's a constant job of watching everything. And then that's not, that's just watching out there. You have to watch your gauges, your alarms. You have to make sure that you're not overflowing. Granted, you have an alarm that beeps when you start to get to 80-90% up there. There's just so many things to watch. Soybeans are so stressful in real life. I tell you, I was just to put it in perspective, how stressed out you can get when you are combining soybeans. It was a stressful field because the stalks were really green, but the crop was actually ready. It was dry. And well, so here's another fun side note. With soybeans, they lose weight really fast. And what do you get measured on, right? They don't measure the actual volume of your truck. They don't measure the actual volume of soybeans that you dump. They measure the weight of the truck when it's full. They measure the weight of the truck when it's empty. So guess what? If you have dry soybeans and they get too dry, below a certain moisture percentage, you start losing money. I forget actually what that moisture percentage is for soybeans, but you start losing money because if they're too wet, they'll actually dock you because they have to dry them, right? So you have to pay drying costs. But then there's a certain weight percentage. Oops. Let's actually go to the tipper and dump here while we are while we can. Anyway, there's a certain moisture percentage where there's a happy medium where if you get the beans too dry, then they don't have to dry them, so they don't dock you to dry them. But if you get below that moisture, then you lose weight because you lose weight on the scale, and you're essentially getting cheated. But that's just the system. It's not cheated. It's just you're cutting the beans when they're too dry. But anyway, so there's that fine line there, and if the beans hit a certain moisture, you got to be out in the field cutting beans. And so the stalks were green, the beans were ready to go, but with green stalks, that means that they are really hard to feed into the combine. So I was really stressed out watching that. I was watching like a hawk. I was watching like a hawk, and my brother called me on the cell phone, and I jumped out of the chair because it's scary when you have a big load go into the combine all at once. Like I tell you that they stack up, right? Either like right there or they stack up right there. And when you get enough beans there or you lower the reel, they all go into the combine at once, and you can easily slug a cylinder and plug it up. And it's okay if the head plugs. That's not good. But what's really bad is if it gets in here and it plugs in there, because your day's over if that plugs. You can reverse. The combines actually have a reverser on them. So like one of these levers over here, it's different on every combine, but you can reverse the whole process and essentially feed the combine out backwards. And I feel like I might be talking about too much real life stuff in this episode. So sorry if this is boring you guys, but let's just fill up all the way. We'll finish opening up that field before we take that in to sell. So anyway, there's so much to watch with soybeans. It's a very stressful job in real life. I would assume that wheat and cereal crops would be something similar because it's, you know, some type of a cutting head, and you have to harvest at a certain moisture, otherwise you lose. So it's still fun, but it's stressful. So yeah. I hope you enjoyed that real bit of trivia. We will make sure that we are not going to back into a tree. And I think we want to do one more end row because we decided that 3 end rows is just about the best for end rows, cutting end rows on the combine for turning. We want to be able to turn efficiently. So we'll cut in there, and that's kind of ugly, but we'll take it. All right. Oops. All right, steer a little bit more to the left, and there we go. Yeah, anyway, I didn't want to, earlier when I was talking about all the modern conveniences of monitoring, I don't want to make our combine sound too old. We have, you know, like we have a yield monitor, and we have switches and indicators for, you know, there's sensors for when we detect too much fruit, you know, soybeans or corn kernels actually falling out the back end of the combine. So we do get detected, we do have sensors for that kind of stuff, but the combine just doesn't automatically adjust itself. A lot of the modern combines, they have better sensors that detect those things, and they actually adjust themselves for, you know, stuff like that. So cylinder speed and, you know, the threshing distance, the gap that you have there in the cylinder, and what else? You have various fan speeds and blower speeds, and hold on, let me concentrate. Okay, so I think that let's head back now, and we'll make sure that we're not backing into a fence. We'll head back and we'll work on the north side there. I think this should do us pretty good for the end rows. I think I remember I did 3 up there on the other field, and 3 was good on turning. It gave us plenty of distance to turn, feeling comfortable, so we will do that. All right. And let's get the head lowered, and we'll hit GPS. I don't know, should I do another time lapse? I think that I am pretty much out of real life stuff to say. So if I think of anything else, I'll cut back in. But for now, we will hit to a time lapse. So I will catch you guys on the other side. See you then. Oh, one last thing before I cut into the time lapse. I know I keep saying that I'll do time lapses. Let me know what you think about the view. You know, I'd been doing something like this, or, you know, like this, or like that, or I can also do one from the end. Maybe I should do one from the back end for a little bit. I could do one like that, or I guess I could just do straight like that. I don't know. There's a lot of different views I could take. Maybe we'll do that angle for a little bit. It gives us a good view of the map. Should we try zooming out all the way? Get some good views? Yeah, let's try that. We'll combine like this for a little bit, and I might switch the view once or twice throughout. But until then, whoa, picked up some speed there going down the hill. Until then, I'll meet you guys on the other side of that time lapse. So, see ya. Oh, you know what? One more thing. Actually, we won't do time lapse. Hold on. I just want to explain myself. Typically, I don't know the way farmers plant or harvest cereal crops, but typically what we do when we cut soybeans, to make turning just a little bit easier, we typically cut into the field a little bit of the way, kind of like something like this. This field's small enough we can do it roughly halfway between the two sides. But then it allows us to, well, you'll see through the time lapse, but it allows us to take various paths to allow easier turning. So that way we don't have to turn always at a straight 180 degrees. It's a little bit more of a gentle turn. Anyway, that is why I am cutting this way. Anyway, I just wanted to explain that in case you were wondering. So here we go, real time lapse now, and that looks like it is a perfect screenshot of the day. So until the other side, catch you guys later. Running over to get the tipper. This is something I've done many times in real life when Dad's in the grain truck and we have an auger wagon, and then my brother's in the combine, or vice versa. But we have, and then I also have my grain truck, so there is 3 people for 4 vehicles, and we don't have a driver to drive the auger wagon, so we have to run back and forth across the field to move it to make it a little bit easier to on the combine. Basically, the goal in harvest is combine never stops. If the combine never stops and the grain trucks have to wait, you are winning. If the combine has to stop on, a grain truck or an auger wagon or anything, then that's a problem. Not necessarily a problem, but it's an efficiency problem. And if you're trying to get the crop out as soon as possible, yeah, you're losing there. Anyway, let's look at sell points. Where do we want to sell wheat? This is wheat or barley? This is wheat. Let's look at where the best place for wheat is. Oh, look, there's only one place for wheat at the Semence de Francais. And where is the Semence de Francais? So let's go back to the map. And the Semence de Francais is right there. So we are going to head out all the way over there. Oh, maybe we should have harvested those fields first. Okay, so here we go. Oh boy, that's going to be a hard turn to make. Maybe, should I just cut through that way? No. We're going to have to just use this pasture to turn around in because I don't know a better way to do it. So let's flip a U-turn there. And I think that I will probably do the rest of this. Oh, that's a big hill. I'll probably do the rest of this as a time lapse, so yeah, I might not talk again until the end of that field. I'm not sure how much we will cover in this episode. I feel like I've talked a lot, and with time lapses, even though it is a time lapse, they do take up a little bit of time, so that's probably going to be an episode at the end of this field, but you guys get to enjoy a lot more harvesting time lapse action until then. So I will catch you on the other side. Until then, yeah, I talk way too much after I say there's going to be a time lapse. I keep you guys in too much suspense. Anyway, really, seriously, here is the time lapse. Okay, I'm done talking. All right, so that concludes the time lapse there. We have a little bit left on the combine, but you know what? Let's just leave the auger out. We're gonna have to dump that. I'm not sure how many more wheat fields we have, but you really never want to take a combine on the road when it has anything in the hopper. They're really unstable and easy to tip. So we will leave it there. We'll run back up and get the tipper. I will probably deliver that off screen. It looks like it's about ready to rain soon, so we better try to get this field baled as soon as possible. You know what? We might want to actually park the combine off the field. Otherwise, if it rains, we might not be able to get it out of the field for a little while, depending on how muddy it is. So we'll just leave it right there ready to dump, and I will see you guys later. Thanks for watching. Be sure to give me a thumb and subscribe if you haven't already. And as always, leave comments on feedback and how you like stuff. So until next time, thanks guys. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.